Today's episode of Barlow BBQ is all about butts. Pork butts, that is. We're going to smoke some pork butts on the pit barrel cooker, and if this is your first time, you've never smoked a pork butt before, then this video is just for you, okay? We're going to talk about time, temperature, and all the steps to make sure you're going to get some awesome pulled pork at the end. So you don't want to miss this one. Stay tuned, and we'll get started. Probably the number one most asked question when it comes to pork butt is how long does it take? What I do is I estimate about an hour to an hour and a half per pound. So for an 8-pound pork butt, I'm thinking it's going to be 8 to 9 hours. And this isn't a hard and fast rule, it just kind of gives me a ballpark of how long to expect it. Now sometimes it'll take less time than that. Sometimes it may take a little bit more. There are a lot of variables at play that can affect that time, like the temperature outside, wind, how your pit barrel is running, how effectively it's running, things like that. So try that out for yourself. Think about an hour to an hour and a half per pound. So let's take a look at our pork butts that we've got today. We've got 2 8-pound pork butts that we're going to do. And we're going to hit those with a homemade rub that I put together. I'll have a recipe for it right down below in the description box if you want to check it out. You want to make sure that you get a nice coating of rub on all sides of the pork butt. Alright, those are looking really good, so I'm going to go ahead and put those in the fridge. So I'll see you back here when the charcoal is ready to go into the pit barrel. Alright, the charcoal is ready to go for the pit barrel. Now I didn't do anything fancy to set that up. I did everything according to the normal instructions for lighting a pit barrel. You can find those instructions on their website. I'll have a link right down below for that. So let me go ahead and grab the charcoal. We'll get that in there. Next up, I've got some apple wood chunks right here I'm going to throw in there. Next thing we need to do is get the grill grate in there. That's right here. Now, let's grab our pork butts and get those on. Now, I'm not really a gadget guy when it comes to barbecue, but I do recommend getting a digital probe thermometer so we can monitor the temps, the internal temps of these pork butts while they cook. So I've got that right here. I'm going to go ahead and get this probe in, get the lid on, and we'll start smoking. Alright, now we can just let this go. I'm not worried about the temperature of the pit barrel. I'm just going to let it do its thing. And I am going to watch those internal temps of the pork butt. So when that hits around 160 degrees, that's generally the time that the stall happens. So at that time, that's when we're going to take those pork butts off, wrap them in foil, and get them back on to finish. So in the meantime, I'm thinking it's going to take about 4 to 5 hours for this to hit the stall. We'll kind of hit on that a little bit later when it's time to wrap. So in the meantime, let's just hang out, enjoy this beautiful day here in North Carolina, and I'll see you all back here in a few hours. Pork butts have been on for 2 hours now, and the internal temp is reading at 97 degrees. You know what? I just can't resist. Let's take a peek. Oh, those are looking awesome. Bark is setting up pretty good. Definitely going to keep letting these go. Probably another 2 hours we'll see when they hit about 150 to 160 degrees, and we should be able to wrap at that point. So let's get this covered back up, and I'll see you all real soon. Alright, the pork butts have been on for a little over 4 hours now, and the internal temp is reading at 151 degrees, so I think we're coming close to hitting the stall. If you've never heard of the stall before, you're probably wondering what that's all about. Now, there is some science behind it that I'm really not great at articulating for you on the video, but pretty much the basic idea is this. When you first start smoking, your temperature inside that pork butt's just going to be climbing up and up and up. And then when it hits the stall, what happens is that temperature just flatlines. And that could last for an hour, 2 hours, and it takes time to push through that stall. So that's why we're going to take these out right now. We're going to wrap them in some tin foil and put those back on the grill, and that's just going to help us push right through that stall. It's going to save us a lot of time. All right, I also want to take a look before I do wrap though. I want to look at these. I want to see what the color's looking like, and I want to see how that bark is set up. Okay, so let's open up this lid and see how they're looking. Wow, check those out. Looking even better. Now that color, I'm happy with the color. Now this bark, so what I'm doing is just kind of like touching that at the surface, and it seems to be set up pretty good. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is we'll get these off the grill and we'll get them wrapped up, and I'll see you in just a moment. Alright, I've got both pork butts wrapped in tin foil, and I did a double wrap of foil on each of those pork butts, okay? Now before I put those back on the pit barrel, one thing I'm going to do is I think I'm going to add just a little bit more charcoal. Now it's probably not necessary, but I like to cover my bases. We can take a little bit more heat. We can get this temperature in this pit barrel a little hotter, and that's just going to help us push through that stall and get us to the finish line a little quicker. All right, so let me dump a little bit more charcoal in here. We'll get those pork butts back on. I'm going to go ahead and put my digital probe thermometer right back in here. All right, so we are in the last phase of our cook. All right, it's probably the most important phase. Now that these are wrapped, these are going to push through our stall, and I do have my thermometer going, so I'm going to monitor the temps. And I'm going to watch that temperature, and when it hits around 190 degrees, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start probing for tenderness. For me, that's how I know a pork butt is done. It's not a certain temperature, it's not a certain time, it all comes down to tenderness. Now it starts getting tender typically around 190 degrees to 200 degrees, somewhere in that window. So what you can do is you can grab a toothpick or use like a digital probe thermometer like this, and just use a probe, and you're going to start probing for tenderness, okay? And when that feels like it's going into soft butter all the way around in that pork butt, that's when it's done. Right now we're going to let this go. I might actually crack the lid a little bit to help get those temps up, but you got to be careful, you don't want to get too hot. So I'm going to leave you for now, and when I come back we should be around 190 degrees, and we'll start checking for that tenderness. Alright, see you soon. Alright folks, it's been an hour since we've wrapped the pork butts, and it's already at 190 degrees. So we're going to go ahead and do our first tenderness check. So I'm just going to take off this first layer on the top. I've got a little probe here, and I'm not going to take temperature at all. It's turned off. I'm just checking for tenderness. Now it's going in really easy. Now that section right there, that's going in real easy. That's what I'm looking for. But back here, yeah, I mean there's a little bit of resistance, especially right here in the middle. I think this end is looking good, but right here in the middle, it still has a little bit of resistance, so I'm going to give this some more time. Let's check this one out. There we go, look at that. Okay. And this one is pretty much the same. It's nice and tender on the outsides here, but right in the middle there, it's not quite there yet. So if I were to pull this now, most of it would be able to pull really easily, but this middle section would still be a little bit tough. So I'm going to cover these up and we'll maybe give them another 15 minutes or so and we'll come back and check it out. Alright, it's been another 30 minutes and the internal temp of the pork butt is reading at 205. So I think we should be pretty good to go, but again, we got to check that tenderness. That's the ultimate determining factor for me. That middle section is feeling a lot better. And I know that the rest of it here is good to go. Let's check out this one. And this one still has a little bit of resistance in the middle, but you know, everything else is feeling really good. I think I'm going to go ahead and call this one, folks. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap these up, get those wrapped up again, and I'm going to take them off the smoker. And we're going to let that rest for a good hour at least. Because what that's going to do, that rest is going to allow that meat to kind of relax a little bit and let the juices inside redistribute, okay? And there is going to be some carryover cooking. So I bet you in another hour or so, when it's time to pull this, I bet you that middle section will be just right, okay? So let me get this off the grill, get it wrapped up, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it in my oven. I'm not going to turn the oven on. I'm just going to put it in the oven and let that rest in there. All right, folks, the moment of truth has arrived. It's time to pull this pork, okay? I've already taken it out of the foil, and it's all ready to go. So I'm going to point the camera down here, and let's see how we did. Okay, here are the two pork butts. Now, the first test to see if we were successful with today's cook is if we can remove this bone clean out of there. And I'll tell you what, we got a little sticky right there. Hey, but that's all right. Look at this, though. This is going to come right off of there. Just like that. All right. Got a little good bit right there. Ooh, that's going to be good. And right there. Okay. I'm pretty happy with that. Let's check this one out right here. Well, that came right out. We still got a little bit right here. That's going to come whoop, right there. And that's off. Ooh, that's a hot bone. Looking good so far. So let's see how this pulls. I'm just going to tear right into this. Oh yeah, look at that. Pulling right apart, y'all. This is awesome. Don't need any of those fancy bear claw. Do it right, you can just do it with a fork. Now again, this is that middle section that was almost to the tenderness I liked, but I was a little pressed for time, so I had to pull it off. But I'd say 95% of this is pulling awesome. It's this middle section right here. But that's pulling good. Ain't got no problem with that. Let's switch, maybe get a little this one right here. There we go. It's all good. I'm just going to kind of do a flyby. Let's get into this one. I'm going to go ahead and pull this all up and get it all the way I like it in a little bit off camera. But I don't need to bore y'all with this. Look at that. Oh boy. I tell you what, smoke ring on this is looking awesome. So let's just dig into this one here. Here we go. That's like butter, folks. Like butter. Look at that. Oh yeah. Okay, let's get into this section right here. Here we go. Let's pull this apart. This piece. There we go. We got to get this side. Boom. So that middle section is the one that's the part that takes the longest to hit the tenderness. So you guys, so just keep that in mind. But I'm happy with this. Still going to be delicious. Still just pulling right apart. But I'm happy with this, folks. Look at this. This is beautiful. Beautiful pulled pork. And again, I'm going to take a little time off camera to get this just the way I like it, but I just wanted to show y'all how both of them turned out. And now, I think for the most important part, we got to give this a taste test. All right, y'all. Let's give this a try. Got a nice barky bit right here. All right, let me tell you what, that is delicious. I didn't have any sauce or anything like that in it. It's just the pork with the bark on there. It's nice and smoky. Get that apple wood coming through. The bark is excellent. This is really good stuff. I do recommend putting a Carolina vinegar sauce on there. At least that's what I prefer. And I did make a video for that recipe, and that will be, was it right up here? Right up here. Go check it out. And I recommend trying out that Carolina vinegar sauce, or use whatever kind of barbecue sauce is your favorite. There's no wrong or right, okay? Really appreciate you hanging out with me today. I know it's a longer video, but I really wanted to get some information to you, and I hope it inspires you to try some pulled pork, and I hope the information here gives you the confidence to pull it off, okay? No pun intended. If you have any questions at all about how to do pulled pork, feel free to leave a comment down below. You can also find Barlow BBQ on Instagram and Facebook as well, okay? So I'd love to connect with you over on those social media platforms. Again, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. We really appreciate it. It's always good to see you. And until next time, smoke 'em if you got 'em. Bye-bye.